To be with all of you. And thank you for your leadership at Legal Policy. We do have a lot of things going on there. I want to thank Acting Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and our Acting Associate Attorney General Jesse Panuccio for their leadership. Jesse, thank you also for your good remarks and thoughtful remarks this morning. Thank you to Dorothy Williams from the Civil Rights Division for sharing your voice with us today. Thank you, Archbishop Kurtz, my good friend Senator Langford, who is really a thoughtful contributor to these important issues in the Senate, as well as our panelists, Acting Assistant Attorney General John Gore, Kerry Kupak, Derek Max, Professor McConnell, Ozma Udin, Shai Dvorsky, Emily Kao, and of course, Jack Phillips. So I want to thank all of you and thank for your courage, insight, and the ability to articulate the values and importance of religious freedom. Let's be frank. A dangerous movement, undetected by many, but real, is now challenging and eroding a great tradition of religious freedom. There can be no doubt. It's no little matter. It must be confronted intellectually and politically and defeated. This past election, and much that has flowed from it, gives us a rare opportunity to arrest these trends and to confront them. Such a reversal will not just be done with electoral victories, however, but by intellectual victories. We've gotten to the point where courts have held that morality cannot be a basis for law, where ministers are fearful to affirm, as they understand it, Holy Writ from the pulpit, and where one group can actively target religious groups by labeling them hate groups. This president and this Department of Justice are determined to protect and advance our magnificent heritage of freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is indeed our first freedom, being the first listed right in the First Amendment. This has been a core American principle from the beginning. It is one of the reasons this country was settled in the first place. The promise of freedom of conscience brought the Pilgrims to Plymouth, the Catholics to Maryland, the Quakers to Pennsylvania, Scott Presbyterians to the Middle Colonies, Roger Williams to Rhode Island. Each of these groups and others knew what it was like to be hated, persecuted, outnumbered, and discriminated against. Each one knew what it was like to have a majority try to force them to deny their natural right to practice the faith they held dear. Our founders gave religious expression a double protection in the First Amendment. Not only do we possess the freedom to exercise our religious beliefs, we also enjoy the freedom of speech. Our founders' understanding of and commitment to religious freedom was truly brilliant. It was historic, really. It arose in large part from the principles delineated in the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom and its effective, brilliant advocates, Madison and Jefferson. These guys were ferocious. This weekend, I was reading Gary Wills's fabulous book, Head and Heart, in which he quotes extensively from Jefferson's Statute for Religious Freedom in Virginia. I commend all of it to you, but one line stood out in particular to me, quote, that Almighty God hath created the mind free and manifested his supreme will that free it shall remain by making it altogether insusceptible of restraint. And he talked about that from a religious point of view. Of course, this is entirely consistent with other quotes of Jefferson, one of which I recall, chiseled in the walls of the Jefferson Memorial, for I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. So this is what they believed. They believed people's religion was between them and God and articulated it that way, and that no state, no temporal power has the power and ability and moral authority to control that thought. They clearly recognized an individual's relationship with God is a natural right. They explicitly said it precedes the existence of the state and is not subject to the state's control. These concepts were placed in our Constitution and laws and formed really a national consensus that has greatly militated against religious hostility and violence that so many places in the world have seen, and has helped us to this day to be one of the world's most diverse religious people. Actually, of the modern nations, one of the most religious, still to this day. There can be no doubt that we are stronger as a nation because of the contribution of religious people. Every day across America, they feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, educate our young people, care for the sick. They do so not because the government tells them to, but because they want to. They do these things because of their faith. I can assure you that people in Washington have no idea the extent to which our religious community is with the American people in times of birth, death, marriage, divorce, and those kind of situations that are so impactful to human beings. And I believe we need to respect that and affirm it wherever possible. So this faith that Americans adhere to has something the state can never provide. This faith provides meaning and purpose and joy in life. But in recent years, the cultural climate in this country and in the West more generally has become less hospitable to people of faith. Many Americans have felt that their freedom to practice their faith has been under attack, and it's easy to see why. We've seen nuns ordered to buy contraceptives. We've seen United States senators ask judicial and executive branch nominees about about dogma, even though the Constitution explicitly prohibits a religious test for public office. We've all seen the ordeal faced so bravely by Jack Phillips. Americans from a wide variety of backgrounds are concerned about what this changing cultural climate means for the future of religious liberty in our country. President Trump heard the concern. I believe this unease among the American people is one reason he was elected. In substance, he said he respected people of faith, and he promised to protect them in the free exercise of that faith. He declared, we would say, Merry Christmas again. And that was a message that went beyond, of course, just any sectarian comment. The Department of Justice is active. We've settled 24 civil cases with 90 plaintiffs regarding the previous administration's wrong application of the contraception mandate to objecting religious employers. Last month, a district court in Colorado issued a permanent injunction in the case involving the Little Sisters of the Poor, a group of nuns who serve the elderly poor. This is a permanent injunction and a major victory for the Little Sisters of the Poor and for religious freedom. The government has no business telling the Little Sisters that they must provide an insurance policy that violates their sincere religious beliefs. And since day one, this administration has been delivering. Soon after taking office, the President directed me, the Department of Justice, to issue explicit legal guidance for all executive agencies on how to apply the religious liberty protections in federal law. Our team embraced that challenge. I got to say, our team was enthusiastic about that challenge. We had some great young people and others too with experience in these matters that went to work. I issued that guidance in October, and it lays out 20 fundamental principles for the executive branch to follow. Those include the principle that free exercise means a right to act or abstain from action. They include the principle that government shouldn't impugn one's motives or beliefs. We don't give up our rights when we go to work, start a business, talk about politics, or interact with the government. We don't give up our rights when we assemble or join together. We have religious freedom as individuals and as groups. In short, we have not only the freedom to worship, but the right to exercise our faith. The Constitution's protections don't end at the parish parking lot, nor can our freedoms be confined to our basements. Under this administration, the federal government is not just reacting to these challenges. We are actively seeking, carefully, thoughtfully, lawfully, to accommodate people of faith. Religious Americans are no longer an afterthought. We will take potential burdens on one's conscience into consideration before we issue regulations or policies. And this Department of Justice is going to court across America to defend the rights of people of faith. First of all, we are aggressively and appropriately enforcing our civil rights laws, our hate crimes laws, and laws protecting churches and faith groups. Since January of 17, we've obtained 11 indictments and 7 convictions in cases involving arson or other attacks or threats against houses of worship. Our Civil Rights Division has also obtained 12 indictments in other attacks or threats against people because of their religion. And we're not slowing down. 3 weeks ago, we obtained a jury verdict against a man who set a fire to a mosque in Texas and sentenced a man from Missouri for threatening to kill members of a mosque. In addition to protecting the safety of people of faith, we're also protecting them against unjust discrimination. In January, we filed a brief in a Montana court to defend parents who claim that the state barred their children who were attending private schools from a private school scholarship program because they attended a religious private school. We filed a amicus brief on behalf of the Archdiocese in Washington, D.C., which was refused advertising space for having a religious message, including, I guess, joy to the world or Merry Christmas. What could they have said that would have offended people that barred them from being able to run such a message? And of course, we're proud to file a brief in support of Jack Phillips. We're taking steps to become even more effective. In June, I announced the Place of Worship Initiative. Under this initiative, the department is holding public events across America and improving training for our federal prosecutors about legal protections for houses of worship. When I was in the Senate, we passed a law called the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act, RLUIPA. That's easier to say than the title. But under RLUIPA, the Department of Justice can file a civil action in court when religious groups are discriminated against in zoning laws. Under my tenure, we have not hesitated to use this tool when appropriate. In June, we filed suit against a town in New Jersey that had refused over and over again for 8 years to let an Orthodox Jewish congregation buy land for a synagogue. And just last week, we filed a brief in federal court supporting the case of a Hindu temple in Maryland that claimed to have suffered discrimination in its attempts to purchase land. We're going to keep going to court, and I believe we're going to keep winning. Today, I am announcing our next step, the Religious Liberty Task Force, to be co-chaired by the Associate Attorney General, Jesse, and the Assistant Attorney General for Office of Legal Policy, Beth. The task force will help the department fully implement our religious liberty guidance by ensuring that all Justice Department components, and we got a lot of components around the country, are upholding that guidance in the cases they bring and defend, the arguments they make in court, the policies and regulations they adopt, and how we conduct our operations. That includes making sure our employees know their duties to accommodate people of faith. And as the people in this room know, you have to practice what you preach. So we're going to remain in contact with religious groups across America to ensure that their rights are being protected. We have been holding listening sessions and will continue to host them in the coming weeks. This administration is animated by that same American view that has led us for 242 years, that every American has a right to believe and worship and exercise their faith in the public square. This approach has served this country well. We are perhaps the most religiously developed nation in the world and can take pride in respecting all people as they fully exercise their beliefs. It is clear these policies have furthered peace, prosperity, freedom, lawfulness, and charity. As our nation grows older, we must not let it depart from this noble tradition. So, now I have the pleasure of introducing a great American and religious leader, Archbishop Joseph Kurtz, someone who is an expert on these matters. Archbishop Kurtz was ordained a priest of the Diocese of Allentown in 1972. Over the next 2 decades, he served in a variety of capacities in the diocese, including teaching at 2 seminaries. He was named Monsignor in 1986 and appointed a pastor in 1988. In 1999, Pope John Paul II appointed him Bishop of Knoxville, and in 2007, Pope Benedict XVI appointed him Archbishop of Louisville, where he now leads the oldest inland diocese in the United States and the oldest archdiocese west of the Appalachians. In 2010, he was elected Vice President of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and then served as President from 2013 to 2016. In 2017, he was elected Chairman of the Conference Committee for Religious Liberty. Please join me in welcoming Archbishop Joseph Kurtz.